Okay, we are live. Today we're analyzing a deal in let me sure my mic is on. Yep. 2645 Mockingbird Lane in Florissant, Missouri. You can kind of see where we are right now. We're in the suburbs over here. And you can see that downtown St. Louis is right over here on this map. So you guys can kind of take a look at that piece. And this is how we have decided to figure out on this market. Now, let's go through our standard processes, right? The first thing we typically do whenever we look at a property is we take a look at the street view just to kind of gauge the neighborhood a little bit. I usually look for any signs of boarded up homes, lots of trash on the street, just weird red flag signs that might point to issues of crime or trouble, whatever you might want to call it. But I don't see any big signs out here. So the next thing I do is I try to understand the neighborhood a little bit better. You could use either Neighborhood Scout to look at it. I've been using tophap.com, tophap.com. I plug in an address right here. You can probably get a free trial. And what I typically like to do is go to the neighborhood section. Once you get to the neighborhood section, this is where you're able to kind of scroll down and then you get your crime index score. So I like that this area, this is below the national average. So it makes me feel a little bit better about the area here. Now, as I get my data, I have to look up the HUD FMR, which if you go to Google and you simply type in HUD space FMR, you can click on this website and then that brings you to right here. And when you scroll all the way down, you can click on access to small error FMRs. What we're trying to achieve here is find the zip code for this area and figure out what the fair market rents are for the specific zip code by bedroom count. Okay. Once you get here, you can figure out, all right, based on the zip code, which is in 63031, you can scroll down 63031. You can get your bedroom count. So this, what I'm paying attention, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom. Since this property is a 4-bedroom, this is the number I want. If this property was a 3-bedroom, I would try to capture the 1810 and the 2100, just in case there are any opportunities where I can add an extra bedroom and figure out if I can convert a garage and potentially increase my rents that way. Is there a basement that has a second egress point that I can also convert into an additional bedroom? This is how you creatively look for ways to increase rents in a market, right? So the next thing you want to do is get the market rent. Now, FMR stands for fair market rents. That's what HUD determines. And usually that is the rent ceiling, unless the city or county has what we call our payment standards. Payment standards usually include utilities, and sometimes they might also have a cost of living adjustment. So in New York, they might pay more for rent simply because you are in a higher or more expensive area. Now, when you go to affordablehousing.com, you can go and click on owners, and then you can go to market rent estimator. This is how you get to this page. Now, when you plug in your address, it'll pop up here, and you can simply type in 4 bedrooms. You click on get estimate, and now what's going to pop up is a couple of bars. Okay, you're gonna get the county, the city, the zip, and the closest or small radius, and that allows you to get 25 units, and they get you the average rent. This is usually typically used to compare against the fair market rents. Okay, and this is why. Usually there is a test. It's called the rent reasonableness test. As you see here, within 2.12 mile radius, there are 25 units where the average rent for a 4-bedroom property is $1,800. Even though the HUD FMR says a 4-bedroom fair market rent is $2,100, technically the market has not caught up to that $2,100 number yet. Now, if you try to charge $2,100, the housing authority might say, no, that is an unreasonable rent number because we don't want you charging extra rent to this household simply because they are a housing choice voucher, which is formerly known as a Section 8 voucher. So when you go and underwrite this property, $2,100 might be the rent for the best case scenario. And then you will have $1,807 as your worst case scenario, your full rent. And you need to ask yourself, hey, do I have the risk tolerance? Now, there are different ways to mitigate that risk. You can call the local housing authority and say, hey, I see that the local market rent for a 4-bedroom is about $1,800. How can I get more rents? And how do I charge above market rents? And they would say you can't get above market rents. However, you're really looking for that. However, what amenities will they allow you to use to charge the extra rent? Now, this is going to be a exercise now that I'm going to go through with you guys, and I'm just going to simply populate all the numbers. What I do for every single property that I analyze is I note and record down what the market rents are from affordablehousing.com. You can see that's 1965, 1830, 1965, 1830. And I note all these numbers down because my investors are going to be looking at these rents to figure out, hey, why am I underwriting using 1807 as my quote unquote floor rent? And they're going to be like, oh, that's because he pulled it from affordablehousing.com, right? You should have justification for why you're assuming rent is going to be a certain rent number for every single property. Right here, I already copied down the HUD FMRs, which is the fair market rent for 63031. And you see the 3-bedroom rent here is 1810. And then you also see 2100. Okay. All right. So from that point onwards, let's kind of come up and fill out the numbers. So let's go to the property. You can see that this property was $165,000. And if you look through the photos, let me see, I can kind of come in here and kind of center a little bit so you guys can kind of see a little bit better. When I go through these properties, one, I'm going to assume I need to repaint the entire home. Anywhere there's carpet, I'm going to replace it. You saw that there was carpet in the living room, but there was no carpet in the dining room or the kitchen, what it looks like, correct? Bathroom is okay. Like I might replace the vanities a little bit just to make it a little bit nicer. I probably replace the carpet in this bedroom. This bathroom's not the best, but also not the worst. Maybe you might want to replace the vanity. Here, the flooring looks fine. You might want to refinish it, but I'll definitely repaint the entire house. So I don't really care about anything on the walls right now because that could just be some kind of drywall repair. This is a partially finished basement. Now, this is why I'm not converting the basement into additional bedrooms unless I actually have a contractor out there that takes a look at this property and tries to figure out whether or not there is an opportunity to convert this basement area into a bedroom. Here's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to figure out whether or not there is there is another egress, meaning do I see any windows down there? I do not. Do I see any doors out there? I see a door out here, but I'm not exactly sure where that leads to. I don't know if that leads to a garage or that's just like a dead wall. Let's kind of keep scrolling. Yeah, no signs of a window on the other side when I was facing the other side of the picture either. So I'm not too optimistic that I can get additional bedrooms. So I'm going to keep this underwrite at currently a 4-bedroom. I just asked about the wallpaper. Yeah, you can just rep that down and just repaint over it. Even if there's like any sort of holes in a wall, just kind of patch it. Usually $300 to $350 a square foot for painting. That's probably enough to cover all of your sort of cosmetic fixes in the house to do this. Okay, so I'm going to plug in some numbers here now. You guys are just following along. And again, the whole point of why I'm doing this is so that you guys can go ahead and do it on your own, analyze your own deals or analyze the same deals and put it onto your own YouTube channel. So you can have a track record of analyzing deals, just doing it alongside with me. Now, usually when I go through my rehab calculator, again, you can DM me your email on Instagram at investwithkenthe, and I will send you the calculator. These have been calculators that have been shared with me. I updated them and leveraged them and re-updated them based on some of the market prices that I've seen from the rehabs that I have done in Scottsdale. So sometimes my prices might be a little bit greater, but I always like to be a little bit more conservative. I always assume that there's something wrong with the roof, some kind of holes, patches. I always leave $1,500 there because sometimes the pictures can't really tell you what's wrong with the home. I always leave about $500 to keep the yard clean. I'm renovating the property. As I scroll down, here's my footage for painting. I always charge about or estimate about $3 a square foot to paint the home. And for this home, I want to put in entire square footage, which is 1779. Okay. 1779. And if you remember when we looked at the flooring, the living room needed a new carpet, but then some of the bedrooms already had carpet. So what I'm going to do is simply assume that only a third of the square footage needs new flooring. So it goes 1779 divided by 3. Now, this is obviously not exact. I'm just roughly estimating numbers to see what can make it a deal, right? This is all you're doing. You want to know whether or not you're within ballpark to figure out whether or not it's one, worth a while for you to send a realtor out there. Two, worthwhile for you to send a contractor out there because you might even be paying the contractor to do a line item bid and pay them for their time. It's very, very important for your own brand and reputation that you don't waste other people's time by sending them to look at every single deal, right? It's kind of like the boy who cried wolf story. You can't send someone to everything, and eventually people stop wanting to work with you. So you got to be careful and really put some thought into some of these your relationships and really pick apart like when is the right opportunity or right time to ask someone to kind of go help you wallpaper. So yeah, already painting an entire place. Maybe I'll just set aside some money to repaint the cabinets, get a new sink in there. Do I need a new range? Let's see. No, the range is fine. I don't need that. No new range. No range hood. I don't need to do a big bathroom replacement, but I'll probably put in like 2 new vanity cabinets for the bathrooms, 2 new vanity mirrors, 2 new sinks, 2 new toilets, assuming that has to get replaced. And that's pretty much what I'm doing for the property here. I'm not adding an extra bedroom because the property is already 4 bedrooms. And as I go all the way down, I'm going to set aside some money for a water heater replacement for $2,500. I got $1,000 to handle any termite issues, should we find any termite issues. And that equals a rehab of about $25,957, assuming a 20% contingency for things that I might not have seen. So let me make that equals to the rehab calculator. Boom. And now, what are my monthly income rents? I'm going to put $2,100 here first so you guys can see what's my best case scenario. Now, let me grab the property tax and insurance number, and I can get this simply by scrolling down all the way to the payment calculator on Redfin. $181 is the property tax number, so I'm going to put in 181. And then the insurance number is 121. So I'm going to do equals 121 times 1.2. And I'm adding a 20% premium as a rough estimate because usually that insurance number on Redfin is for a primary homeowner. So I put in an extra 20% premium because usually the insurance for a investment property costs a little bit more than your primary home insurance policies. Okay, I have 10% for maintenance, which means I'm setting aside 10% of my rents every single month in anticipation that something will break down during my rental career for this unit specifically. The roof might need to get replaced eventually. The water heater might get replaced eventually. The HVAC system might break down eventually. So all these things you need to set aside because you should never fall in a trap where you say, hey, my principal, interest, taxes, insurance, my PITI is $1,500 and my rent is $2,100. So every month I'm making $600. That is not true because there's always something that's going to go wrong with you, with your home. And you need to set aside this money because that is not your money. Technically, that money should belong to the home because everything breaks down. Eventually, the roof always gets replaced in the property. So you should never assume that you get to keep all of the cash flow from just simply subtracting the rents from your PITI. I set aside $65 for the sewer because usually the city of St. Louis requires the landlord to pay for the sewer. Property management is 8%, and I set aside 3% for vacancy just because someone will always move out of your home. Eventually, it's just a matter of time. They might live until the end of life, but you got to set aside some money because it's never fully 100% occupied. You expect people to move out every 3, 5, and even if you do really, really good, which we've had Dr. Joe Asamoah on, he's had tenants to stay about 20, 25 years, but still, nobody has lived there for 100 years, right? So you want to set that in place. Now, here's what we got. We have right now a loan. I'm going to assume that the interest rates right now is 8.5%. And I'm assuming this is a 25% down payment right now, which means I have to pay $41K, closing costs of $4K, and then another $25,000, $26,000 to renovate the property. All things considered, this property, if I buy this at $164,000, $164.9K, this yields me a $316 cash flow at 5.33% cash on cash return. So I'm going to write down all this number. This is 165. So I'm just going to use some easy numbers here. Cash flow for a month, $317. And this is assuming a $2,100 rent. Okay. Now let's say it goes down to my floor, which is, remember what we talked about, what we got from affordablehousing.com, which is at 1807. Again, if you want to look at the full screen version, this is on youtube.com/@Kent_HE. At 1807, let's see what my numbers are. 1807. So now I might say, well, I know I should be, if I renovate this property to a good standard, I should get at least 1807 because that seems to be a reasonable rent since the market is already charging this. And this equals to a 1.4% return. Now, why do I do the worst case scenario analysis? It's because, yes, when I buy this property, I might rent it for 2100, but I do want to think to myself, like, hey, what's my worst case scenario? And sometimes people's worst case scenario is like, oh, what if it stays empty forever? Or what if I don't rent it out for X amount of dollars? In my opinion, this is my floor. So, in my opinion, hey, my quote unquote worst case scenario should technically be I'm making $85 a month. Very small, but it might help you get over the fear regarding, oh my God, I'm gonna lose everything. Like, what if everything goes wrong? In my opinion, this is how I help myself get over that fear by analyzing the worst case scenario so I can figure out whether or not I should purchase this deal. And at least to go over that scenario in my head, that makes me have a lot more comfort. Now, here's what I want to do. What if my rent really is 1807? How do I achieve a 17% cash on cash return, which is what my investors criteria is? What if I bought this property for 100 grand? Doesn't work. What if I bought this property for 75 grand? Man, this seems like a pretty impossible deal, huh? 65 grand. 68 grand? Okay, so I get to 68 grand. If I had bought this property for $68,000 and that still required $25,000 rehab, now all of a sudden I'd be like, all right, I can make about $644 a month. And this is about 17.3% cash on cash return. Yep. And this assumes this is an 1807. But if I think I can buy this property rent this property at 2100, now all of a sudden I might say, well, the lowest I'm willing to go might now be 95,000. Let's see. Yeah, 90. Cool. Well, now all of a sudden I might be willing to pay $92,000 and then still be able to achieve my 17% cash on cash return. So hopefully this sort of scenario analysis is super helpful for you guys because it helps you determine what is your buy box and what's the purchase price that you want at. Now, this does not include what if this was a much more bigger fixer upper and I was able to burr it and actually get back out all my capital. That could have been the case, but if you want to look at me analyze a burr property, please definitely look at my YouTube live. And I think I did a YouTube live on, I'll look it up for you guys so you guys can kind of see. Just because if you want to do a burr and a heavy fixer upper, you want to pull back out your capital. I did a burr analysis, and let's see. 8 days ago, I said I did a deal on how to analyze a burr deal, and hopefully that will give you a little bit of more context on one, how do you actually go through that process and figure out like, hey, if this was a bigger fixer upper, how much more can I force the value into the property? And in this scenario, this does not apply because this wasn't that big of a fixer. You're really just doing like some paint and some carpet. I don't think you're going to be able to get a significant discount on this one. So this is it for today's underwriting. Hopefully this was helpful. I go live every day for our affordable housing and real estate investment community. The whole point of this is so that we can all underwrite together so that if there are new people coming into the community going forward, we can all help one another, pay it forward, and really kind of be friends for one another, be that support system so that we can all be a little bit less afraid about analyzing these deals together. So DM me your email if you want a copy of the calculator. And please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Kent_H. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing Monday. Hopefully this was helpful. And please DM me if you guys have any feedback or have any other deals that you want to look at for single family purposes for Section 8 specifically. All right. Awesome. Have an amazing day, everybody. See you tomorrow.